are inside one of the most sophisticated bridges on any passenger ship, and that's because they're navigating outside to the Drake Passage. We actually entered into these rough waters.
The Drake Passage stands as the most dangerous sea route on the planet, where more than 800 ships have sunk and approximately 20,000 sailors have lost their lives. This treacherous stretch of water connects the southern tip of South America at Cape Horn with the northernmost point of Antarctica, creating a maritime graveyard where waves can reach staggering heights of up to 15 meters, 49 feet. But why is it so deadly? Stick around, because what happens here will absolutely blow your mind. The geography behind the danger. At the far southern edge of South America lies a place that seems to challenge both nature and human endurance. It is where Cape Horn meets the Drake Passage, a region often described as the end of the world. For centuries, sailors have looked at this spot on the map with a mix of fear and fascination. Even in modern times, with advanced ships and precise navigation, the meeting point of these waters continues to demand deep respect. It is a place that reminds everyone, no matter how advanced technology becomes, that nature still holds ultimate power. Cape Horn itself stands tall and silent on Hornos Island, part of Chile's remote Tierra del Fuego archipelago. Rising about 425 meters above sea level, it marks the boundary between two mighty oceans, the Atlantic and the Pacific. Its exact coordinates, 55 degrees to 58 minutes south latitude and 67 degrees to 16 minutes west longitude, might look like just numbers on a map. But for sailors, they represent a threshold into one of the most unpredictable regions on Earth. And just beyond it stretches the Drake Passage, a body of water roughly 600 miles or 1,000 kilometers wide. It connects the southern tip of South America with the icy edge of the South Shetland Islands near Antarctica. At its narrowest, the passage measures only 135 kilometers across, making it the shortest distance between Antarctica and any other continent. But could anything about this place ever mean easy? Certainly not. This isn't just another stretch of ocean. This is nature's own battlefield, where calm waters turn traitor without warning, and the horizon hides more danger than promise. Here, three mighty oceans, the Atlantic, the Pacific, and the Southern, crash together in a furious dance of waves and wind, each one fighting for dominance like ancient gods locked in eternal war. Imagine standing on a ship's deck, feeling the deck heave beneath your feet as the sky bruises gray and the air tastes like salt and iron. Even the bravest sailors speak of this place with a tremor in their voice, a mix of respect and raw fear. For centuries, it's tested human limits, swallowed countless ships whole, and sent explorers back home with eyes that had seen too much. They say, if you listen closely, you can still hear the ghosts of the lost echoing through the storm. Yet, every year, someone dares to cross it again, chasing adventure, glory, or sometimes just survival. Because for those who make it through, the story itself becomes a badge of honor. So stay with me till the very end, because what lies ahead is not just a story of wind and water. It's a journey through one of the most dangerous sea routes on the planet. Many have described this area as a natural bottleneck, and that's not an exaggeration. The Drake Passage acts as Earth's great maritime choke point, squeezing and accelerating the immense flow of the world's most powerful ocean current. The Antarctic Circumpolar Current, often called the ACC, races endlessly around the frozen continent, and when it reaches this narrow gap between South America and Antarctica, the result is pure turbulence. Imagine trying to pour a river through a funnel. That's essentially what happens here. The water, pressed into a tighter corridor, speeds up dramatically. As if that weren't enough, the geography of the region amplifies everything: wind, waves, and even temperature shifts. The funneling effect not only makes the sea restless, but also whips the wind into a frenzy. Gusts can roar without warning, and waves can rise like moving walls of water. One might wonder, How did the early explorers ever survive these journeys with wooden ships and simple sails? At the very heart of all this turmoil is the Antarctic circumpolar current itself, a truly astonishing force of nature. Scientists have measured it moving up to 150 million cubic meters of water every single second. To put that in perspective, that's about 100 times more water than all the rivers on Earth combined. It circles Antarctica without obstruction, connecting the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans in a single continuous loop. When this current enters the Drake Passage, it hits its narrowest point and naturally speeds up even more. It's here, near Cape Horn, that the current reaches its greatest strength. No wonder sailors for centuries have referred to this place as a test of both courage and seamanship. But beyond its fearsome reputation, the Drake Passage also carries deep scientific importance. When it opened millions of years ago, somewhere between 49 and 17 million years back, it changed the planet's climate forever. Researchers believe that this opening allowed cold waters to circulate freely around Antarctica, isolating it thermally and leading to the formation of massive ice sheets. In other words, the same forces that make the Drake Passage so dangerous today helped shape the frozen continent itself. Isn't it fascinating how something so threatening could also be so essential to the planet's balance? Even today, ships that cross these waters must prepare with the utmost caution. Weather reports are studied down to the last detail, and every captain knows that the Drake Passage can turn from calm to chaos in just hours. The mix of strong winds, towering waves, and freezing temperatures makes it one of the most unpredictable sea routes in the world. Yet, despite its dangers, it also holds a strange kind of beauty, a raw, untamed energy that draws adventurers, scientists, and explorers alike. Some might ask, why risk it? But perhaps that's part of the human spirit, the urge to face the unknown, to challenge the limits, and to stand in awe of nature's grandeur. So when people speak of Cape Horn and the Drake Passage, they aren't just talking about geography. They're talking about a living force, a place where the ocean roars with the memory of every ship that dared to cross it. Even in this age of satellites and steel, there are corners of our planet that still hold dominion over us. Here, the sea isn't just deep, it's alive. The wind doesn't just blow, it commands. And every wave that crashes carries a story of survival, defiance, and respect. But if you've ever wondered why this stretch of ocean seems almost angry, you're not alone. There's a reason even the most seasoned sailors whisper about it with a mix of awe and dread. Because beneath that endless horizon lies seen the battle of natural forces so fierce, it can turn calm skies into chaos in mere minutes. So stay with me. Don't blink. Don't scroll. Because what happens here isn't random. The truth behind Cape Horn's wrath reveals something far deeper than weather patterns. It's a glimpse into Earth's raw power itself. And once you understand what makes this weather so extreme, you'll never look at the ocean the same way again. What makes the weather so extreme? Many people have heard of Cape Horn, but few truly understand why sailors regard it as one of the most dangerous places on Earth. Beyond its harsh geography and lonely, unforgiving position at the tip of South America, the weather systems around Cape Horn create what mariners often describe as pure chaos on water. It is not just another stormy sea, it is a place where nature seems determined to remind humans who is in charge. The conditions there result from a rare and brutal combination of air, water, and land, a meeting point where the atmosphere and ocean seem to have made an agreement to test every vessel that dares to cross. One might wonder, what exactly makes this corner of the world so uniquely treacherous? To begin with, the southern latitudes are home to three infamous belts of wind known to every sailor who has ventured far enough south: the roaring 40s, the furious 50s, and the screaming 60s. These are not poetic names, but rather warnings passed down through centuries of sea stories. The roaring 40s, which stretch between 40 and 50 degrees south, mark the beginning of these relentless wind zones. Go a little farther to the furious 50s, between 50 and 60 degrees south, and the winds grow even wilder. And beyond 60 degrees, In the screaming 60s, it is said the air itself howls with fury. These winds are westerlies, blowing from west to east, formed by the movement of hot air rising at the equator and moving toward the poles. Combined with Earth's rotation, this creates vast, powerful airflows that sweep endlessly across the ocean. Unlike the northern hemisphere, which is broken up by continents that interrupt the winds, the southern hemisphere is a vast, open playground for nature's forces. With hardly any land to slow them down, the winds can build incredible strength, often reaching speeds of 22 miles per hour on average, and at times gusting past 56 miles per hour. It is no wonder sailors have long whispered among themselves that below 40 degrees south there is no law, beyond 50 degrees south there is no God. Such words, half joking and half terrified, tell a lot about what life feels like at sea in those latitudes. As these wild winds sweep for thousands of miles across open ocean, they transfer massive amounts of energy into the water. This is what creates the monstrous waves that roll through the Drake Passage, the stretch of ocean separating South America from Antarctica. The waves here are no ordinary swells. They are giants. On an average day, waves rise between 13 and 16 feet high, about twice as tall as those in the Atlantic Ocean. And during storms, they can tower up to nearly 50 feet, enough to make even the largest ships feel like toys tossed about by an angry hand. It all begins far from the Horn itself. As oceanographer Dr. Brearley once explained, the winds often have been blowing over thousands of kilometers before reaching you. He described how kinetic energy from the wind is steadily passed into the waves, building what he called storm waves. This process never really stops. It keeps feeding itself, creating what many sailors have come to know as the most powerful convergence of seas on the planet. But that's not all. What makes the Drake Passage especially deadly is how the geography of the region concentrates all that natural force. Oceanographers refer to it as the funneling effect. Imagine wind and water being squeezed between two massive continents, Antarctica and South America, and you can picture how this natural bottleneck makes storms even worse. As the enormous volume of water, part of the world's largest ocean current, rushes through the narrow passage, it accelerates. Scientists have measured it and found that around 5,300 million cubic feet of water flow through every second. When those fast-moving eastward currents meet the fierce westerly winds, the result is explosive. The waves grow taller, the seas churn violently, and ships are tossed in every direction. How could anyone sail through that and not feel small? And while most of the chaos happens above water, the real story doesn't stop at the surface. Beneath the waves lies another hidden danger: the shape of the ocean floor. Near the tip of South America, the seabed suddenly rises from depths of around 4,000 meters to just a few hundred. This abrupt change creates what scientists call a wall, forcing the water rushing from the Pacific and Atlantic upward. When those powerful currents collide with underwater ridges and mountains, they generate internal waves, invisible but extremely powerful movements of water beneath the surface. These internal waves cause intense mixing of the ocean's layers, sometimes altering water density by as much as 30% in the area. Scientists describe these disturbances as vortices, swirling masses that drag colder water from the ocean depths toward the surface. It is fascinating, isn't it, that similar phenomena are found in only two other places on Earth: the Bay of Biscay, near France and Spain, and the banks of Newfoundland in the North Atlantic. Both regions sailors also consider dangerous. Yet Cape Horn takes things to another level. Add to that the towering Andes mountain range close by, freezing Antarctic waters, and some of the fiercest weather systems on Earth, and you get a deadly mix unlike anywhere else. No wonder oceanographers often describe the conditions there as some of the nastiest sea states on Earth. For centuries, countless sailors have feared and respected Cape Horn in equal measure. To round it successfully was once considered a badge of honor, proof that a mariner had faced nature at its most unforgiving and survived. But as anyone who has crossed it will tell you, it's not just about courage, it's about understanding that the forces at work there are beyond human control. The winds, The waves, the cold, the underwater mountains, they all conspire to remind mankind of its smallness. And one can't help but wonder, what drives people to keep challenging a place like that, knowing full well what awaits them? Perhaps it's the mystery, or the thrill, or maybe it's just that timeless, unstoppable human desire to conquer what refuses to be conquered. Cape Horn isn't just a point on the map. It's a living, breathing legend carved by wind, waves, and the bones of those who dared to challenge it. For centuries, this southernmost tip of the world has whispered the same daring invitation: come if you must, but you might not return. And yet, sailors kept coming. Explorers kept risking everything. Even today, Cape Horn remains a name that stirs something primal in us, a mix of fear, fascination, and deep respect for nature's unshakable power. But what makes this place so irresistible? Why did it become both the graveyard of ships and the crown jewel of maritime glory? The truth lies in its haunting history, a story filled with tragedy, courage, and obsession that refused to die with the men who faced it. Before you scroll away or blink too long, stay with me till the very end. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a history lesson, it's a gripping journey through centuries of storms, survival, and the unbreakable spirit of adventure. A history of fear and fascination. For centuries, Cape Horn and the Drake Passage have been known as two of the most feared and fascinating places in maritime history. They have carved their place in the memories of sailors and explorers through countless tales of courage, tragedy, and discovery. Many who dared to cross these waters spoke of their power with both awe and fear. It was said that the waves could rise higher than the masts of ships, and that the winds screamed like angry spirits across the endless ocean. Why did so many sailors risk everything to pass through such a deadly region? Perhaps it was because Cape Horn was not just a point on the map. It was a symbol of endurance, courage, and the unyielding will of those who refused to turn back. The story begins in the early 1500s, when Spanish navigator Francisco de Hoces was blown south from the Strait of Magellan in 1525. He accidentally became the first European believed to have sighted the treacherous waters that would later be called the Drake Passage. On Spanish maps, the area was marked as Mar de Hox, or the Sea of Hoax, in his honor. Then came 1578, when Sir Francis Drake, the famous English explorer, entered the same waters after his fleet was scattered by violent storms. That experience proved to the English that open water existed south of South America, a discovery that changed how they viewed global navigation forever. But even then, no one had yet intentionally sailed around Cape Horn. That bold act would not happen until 1616, when the Dutch navigator Willem Schouten, accompanied by Jacob Lemaire, became the first to round it on purpose. Schouten named it Cape Horn, after his hometown in the Netherlands, a name that would echo through history. One might wonder, did he realize at that moment how his voyage would mark one of the greatest milestones in sea exploration? Over time, Cape Horn became an essential route for trade and travel, especially from the 18th to the early 20th century. Before the Panama Canal was built, ships had no other way to move between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans except by braving these brutal waters. The route was perilous, but it connected continents and fueled global commerce. Sailing ships carried wool, grain, and gold from Australia to Europe, while others moved precious goods between Europe and East Asia. During the California Gold Rush in the 1840s, vessels loaded with eager fortune seekers and tons of supplies made their way around the Horn despite the danger. Passenger ships traveling between the east and west coasts of the United States also had to take this same path. It's hard to imagine how desperate or determined one had to be to sail through such a place where storms could strike without warning, and the temperature could drop in minutes. Yet, those who succeeded in rounding the Horn wore their accomplishment like a badge of honor. They earned the right to wear a gold earring in the left ear, and to dine with one foot on the table. A strange but proud tradition that symbolized survival against all odds. Still, not everyone who ventured there made it back. The waters around Cape Horn were merciless and unforgiving. Over the centuries, more than 800 ships were lost, and around 10,000 seamen met their deaths in those icy depths. Among the many tragedies, one of the most haunting was the disappearance of the Spanish ship San Telmo in 1819. It vanished without a trace along with its 644 crew members. It was later believed that its wreckage might have reached the shores of Antarctica, making those sailors the first known human casualties on the frozen continent. How many more ships met similar fates, swallowed by storms or smashed against unseen rocks? No one will ever truly know. The ocean keeps its secrets well, and Cape Horn became a graveyard of wooden masts and broken dreams. When the Panama Canal opened in 1914, it changed everything. The world suddenly had a safer and shorter route that linked the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. This massive engineering achievement reduced the distance between New York and San Francisco from 13,000 nautical miles to just over 5,000. It saved time, money, and, most importantly, lives. Slowly, the once necessary journey around Cape Horn became obsolete for commercial ships. The Horn, once a bustling route filled with trading vessels and clipper ships, turned into more of a destination for adventurers, explorers, and those who wanted to test their limits. But even as the canal took over global trade, Cape Horn never lost its aura. It became a monument to the past, a reminder of how far humanity had come and how much it had endured to master the seas. Today, Cape Horn is still whispered about in the sailing world with a mixture of respect and fear. It stands as a reminder of a time when the ocean decided who lived and who didn't. Modern ships may have technology, GPS, and engines that make travel safer, but sailors still speak of Cape Horn with reverence. Could it be that some parts of the world are meant to humble us, no matter how advanced we become? Cape Horn certainly does. Its name alone conjures images of raging storms, endless waves, and lonely sailors staring into the cold horizon, wondering if they'll ever see land again. It's more than a point on a map. It's a legend carved into ocean lore, whispered about by those who've dared to face its fury. Sailors called it the end of the world for a reason. Every ship that rounded that deadly tip carried not just cargo, but fear, faith, and the fragile hope of survival. For centuries, it was where dreams and disasters met, where courage was tested, history was written, and the sea always had the final word. But here's where it gets fascinating. Cape Horn hasn't lost its grip on adventure, not even in our age of technology and GPS. Crossing it today might not demand wooden ships or tattered sails, but it still asks for something deeply human: respect, endurance, and a touch of madness. So stay with me till the very end, because what happens when modern explorers take on the world's most feared passage will make you realize the spirit of Cape Horn hasn't calmed one bit. It still roars, even now. What it's like to cross today. For travelers who find themselves journeying through the Drake Passage today, the experience can be anything from thrilling to terrifying, depending entirely on the mood of the weather. This stretch of ocean, sitting between the southern tip of South America and the northernmost reaches of Antarctica, has long been known as one of the roughest seas on Earth. People often described it as a test of courage, a passage that separated the daring from the faint-hearted. For modern adventurers, it still holds that same weight. Many said that crossing it felt like earning a badge of honor, a story to tell for years. After all, how many people can say they faced the same treacherous waters that countless explorers once battled through centuries ago? Travelers often heard two phrases when preparing for the journey: the Drake Shake and the Drake Lake. The difference between the two could not be more dramatic. Some passengers stepped aboard their ships only to be met with the violent rocking of the Drake Shake, where roaring winds and towering waves tossed the ship so fiercely that even the most experienced sailors had to grip onto railings for balance. People spoke of how it could send cups sliding across tables, luggage rolling across cabins, and in extreme cases, toss passengers right out of bed. Then there was the rare and almost magical Drake Lake, a calm crossing where the sea remained glassy, still, and strangely peaceful, as though nature herself had decided to give travelers a gentle welcome to Antarctica. Ship captains often told curious passengers that only about 30% of crossings were truly rough. But when you're in the middle of those icy waters, even a calm day can feel intimidating. Would anyone really take such a journey expecting absolute comfort? Probably not. That was part of its appeal. Those who had heard about the Drake Passage before setting sail usually came prepared. Experienced travelers were known to share a few golden tips with newcomers, all in the hope of avoiding the dreaded seasickness that often came with the territory. They suggested taking motion sickness medication a full 24 hours before departure, because once the ship started rocking, it was too late to stop the nausea. Others advised staying midship and on lower decks, where the movement was less intense. Some travelers found comfort in staring at the horizon, claiming it helped steady the eyes and the stomach. People also said it was best to skip alcohol altogether and to drink plenty of water, since dehydration made everything worse. Many agreed that these small steps could make the difference between an exciting voyage and a miserable one. And really, who wanted to spend such a legendary crossing lying sick in their cabin, missing out on everything? Life on board during the crossing varied as much as the sea itself. When the waters turned rough, the crew worked quickly to secure loose furniture, and passengers were sometimes told to stay indoors for safety. Walking across the decks could be nearly impossible in heavy swells, and even taking a shower became an adventure of its own. But the ships of today were nothing like those of the old explorers. Modern expedition vessels came with stabilizers that helped reduce the roll, and many featured cozy lounges with wide glass windows where people could watch the waves crash outside from the warmth and safety of indoors. Naturalists and historians often gave talks about Antarctic wildlife, climate, and the history of exploration. Listening to those stories while the ship groaned and rolled with the waves gave travelers a deep sense of connection to the brave souls who had sailed these waters centuries ago with nothing but wooden ships and sheer determination. Could there be a more humbling reminder of how small humans truly are in the face of nature's power? And yet, despite the discomfort, the unpredictability, and even the fear, there was something magnetic about the Drake Passage that drew people in. Many travelers admitted that they wanted to face it head-on, not because it was easy, but because it was hard. There was a thrill in challenging something that had defeated so many before. Some said they felt like they were crossing into a different world, one that few ever got to see. The passage wasn't just a physical journey, it was an emotional and mental one too. By the time they reached the icy edges of Antarctica, many travelers found themselves changed. They spoke of how the crossing made them appreciate the quiet resilience of the explorers who came before them. It wasn't just about arriving at the destination, it was about earning it. In the end, those who dared to sail through the Drake Passage often came back with more than photographs or stories. They came back with a sense of accomplishment, a deep respect for nature, and perhaps even a small piece of humility. After all, anyone can take a plane to somewhere comfortable, but how many can say they crossed the world's most unpredictable sea and lived to laugh about it later? Maybe that's what makes it so special. Maybe that's why, year after year, adventurers continue to return, hoping for calm waters, but secretly wishing for a little bit of the Drake shake. After all, without a challenge, would the memory really mean as much? With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.